Hello, I'm Simon Whistler, you're watching Today I Found Out. In the video today, the truth about the origin of the candy cane. You may have heard that the candy cane was invented to represent Jesus, with the white base color of the candy cane symbolizing Jesus' purity, the red stripe symbolizing Jesus' blood when he died on the cross, and that the J shape was chosen to represent the J in Jesus. While this does make for a great candy cane origin story, there is about as much evidence to back this up as there is to support the myth that Mr. Rogers was once a sniper in the US military and he always wore long-sleeve sweaters to cover up all the tattoos on his arms and chest, one for each person he killed. In fact, Mr. Rogers was an ordained Presbyterian minister, was never in the military, and was an ardent pacifist. You can actually learn more about this in our video about Mr. Rogers, where we go through 20 fascinating facts about the man himself. But back to the topic at hand. There simply isn't any evidence to support any Jesus connection to the candy cane origin story, though of course there's nothing wrong with creating such symbolism around existing traditions. So what is the real origin story of the candy cane, you might now ask? Well, to begin with, white hard sugar sticks have been a fairly common confectionery for centuries. As to why the originally straight stick turned into a J shape, there is a rumor that this was done by a choir master in a Cologne cathedral in the late 17th century in order to symbolize a shepherd's staff. He would then give these shepherd's staff candies to children to keep them quiet during the traditional Christmas Eve nativity scene reenactment. This does make for another nice story, but there simply isn't much evidence to back it up either, other than the fact that it is often repeated by otherwise reputable sources. None of these sources, however, go so far as to give any direct evidence to support it. Looking into this a little deeper, starting around the 15th century, the church officially banned live reenactments of the nativity scene, something that had previously been extremely popular, so any such scene that involved a minister or choir master and took place in the Cologne Cathedral in the 17th century would have been a static scene, so a little boring for kids to look at, as perhaps was the Mass itself. But that's hardly direct evidence that the story is true. It also seems questionable that candy would be allowed in such a service, and certainly the practice didn't catch on elsewhere, as the nativity scene reenactment was popular all over, starting around the 13th century, and nobody else seemed to think that there was a need for giving the kids candy during Mass to get them to be quiet, at least there isn't any record of it. It could just as well have been the case, and seems slightly more plausible, that candy canes got the crook end simply as it made them easier to hang on a tree. This is also why they are closely associated with Christmas today. Around the same time candy canes seem to have gotten their crook, many other food items started to be used to decorate Christmas trees, like cookies, fruit, candies, and other such things. Around 2 centuries later, the first candy cane that popped up in America was supposedly thanks to a German immigrant, August Imgard, who used the candy cane for the purpose of decorating a Christmas tree in his home in Worcester, Ohio. As do the stripes on the candy canes, this is much more of a modern invention, but it still remains a bit of a mystery. Evidence, such as Christmas cards from the late 19th century, seem to indicate people were still going with the all-white candy cane at that time. Then in the early 20th century, Christmas cards started showing up with candy canes having the stripes. Given candy canes were used as much as for decoration as for eating at this time, it's not surprising that somebody got the bright idea to put a colourful stripe on them. It should also be noted that a little over half a century or so before stripes were known to be added to candy canes, there is a reference of white peppermint candy sticks with coloured stripes added. These weren't the crooked candy canes, but perhaps this helped spur the tradition of stripes on peppermint candy canes when, in the early 20th century, various candy makers started experimenting with other flavours, including peppermint. But who actually got the first idea to make striped candy canes is still a mystery. Some say that it was candy maker Bob McCormack in the 1920s. McCormack's company would become one of the world's largest peppermint candy cane producers by the late 1950s, selling about 500,000 candy canes per day at their peak. But it may well be that McCormack simply popularized the striping practice rather than actually invented it. One thing, though, is for sure. This idea spread like wildfire, and soon a red stripe on candy canes was nearly universal, as was peppermint flavoring. Now, despite the lack of direct evidence that a Catholic priest or choir master had anything to do with the origin of the candy cane, there is a Catholic priest who has a claim to fame because of his association with candy cane. Father Gregory Keller invented the Keller Machine. No, not the Doctor Who Keller Machine. This one simply automatically put the crook in the candy cane. Before this, the cane had to be manually bent when it was still warm and soft and coming off the assembly line, and this was done using a wooden mold. Father Keller was the brother-in-law of the aforementioned Bob McCormack. McCormack was having trouble at the time because about 22% of the canes produced by Bob and his crew were ending up in the trash as they broke during the bending process. Keller's machine automated this process, and shortly thereafter was perfected by Dick Driscoll and Jimmy Spratling, both of whom worked for Bob McCormack. This made it so the candy canes came out perfect nearly every time, and the rest, as they say, is history. So I really hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below, and do not forget to subscribe for brand new videos just like this every day of the week. Also, if you're looking for another channel to subscribe to, I'd like to recommend a friend of this channel, Picture the Recipe. Great time of year for doing cooking at home and all of that stuff, and Picture the Recipe makes easy to follow and delicious recipe videos. You can find a link to them in the description below. They're not a sponsor, they're just a friend of the channel, so please do click that link in the description below and check them out. And as always, thank you for watching.